The courtroom buzzed with quiet confidence. Victoria Ashford sat flanked by her army of lawyers, a woman who looked like she had never lost anything in her life. Her Hermes scarf was tied with the kind of casual precision that screamed old money. Her diamond earrings caught the light every time she turned, her head to whisper something cutting to her lead attorney. She was divorcing her husband, and she planned to walk away with everything while leaving, him with the clothes on his back. She thought this would be easy. She thought he was just a simple community college teacher, with no connections and no fight in him. She was catastrophically wrong. The moment those courtroom doors opened and a line of serious-faced men in tailored suits walked in, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria wasn't just divorcing a broke teacher. She was about to go to war with a family that built empires, while her ancestors were still learning to read, and today they had come to remind her of that fact. The divorce proceedings of Ashford versus Ashford were taking place in the Los Angeles Superior Court, a building that smelled of leather-bound law books and broken promises. To Victoria Ashford, the smell was intoxicating. It smelled like winning. Victoria adjusted the platinum bracelet on her wrist, checking the time on her Patek Philippe watch. She was beautiful in the way glaciers are beautiful, stunning, cold, and capable of crushing anything in her path. At 36, she was the CEO of Ashford Pharmaceuticals, a company she had inherited from her father and tripled in value, admittedly with the quiet support of her husband, Marcus, but she had conveniently erased that from her memory. Today, she wasn't thinking about the nights Marcus had stayed up, researching patent laws to help her. She wasn't thinking about how he'd held her when the FDA threatened to shut them down. She was thinking about Dante, her 28-year-old CO, currently waiting for her in a beachfront villa in Malibu, and she was thinking about how much she enjoyed breaking people who trusted her. "Look at him," Victoria whispered to her lead attorney, Catherine Blackwell. Blackwell was a woman known in legal circles as the Ice Queen because she didn't just win cases, she left the opposition in financial ruin. "He looks like a scared puppy. This will be over before my lunch reservation at Nobu." Catherine Blackwell smiled, a thin, predatory expression. "Standard procedure. Victoria, we obliterate his credibility. He signs away any claim to your assets, and he goes back to whatever classroom in the valley you found him in. He has a legal aid attorney, for God's sake." Legal aid against me. Across the aisle, Marcus Ashford sat alone. He wore a simple navy blazer that looked like it came from a department store clearance rack. His dark hair was graying at the temples, and he looked exhausted. His hands were clasped on the scratched wooden table in front of him. Next to him sat a young woman named Elena Rodriguez, a court-appointed lawyer who looked like she'd passed the bar about 3 weeks ago. She was shuffling papers with trembling hands, her coffee-stained notepad full of frantic scribbles. "Mr. Ashford," Elena whispered, her voice shaking, "I really think we should accept the settlement offer. $5,000 is better than nothing. Blackwell is a monster. She's going to argue that you contributed nothing to the marriage, that you were using Victoria for her money." Marcus didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the empty judge's bench. His voice was quiet but steady. "I taught history for 12 years. Elena, I know how empires fall. They collapse from the inside, not from the outside." "What?" And Elena blinked. "Confused, Mr. Ashford. This isn't a metaphor. This is your life. They have character witnesses, people who will say you were lazy, that you never worked, that you manipulated her. They have bank statements showing you had no income when you married her, because I was finishing my master's degree," Marcus said calmly, "which she knew, which she supported, until she didn't." Elena stared at him. For a man about to be eviscerated in court, he was strangely composed. It wasn't the composure of acceptance. It was the composure of someone who knew something she didn't. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Crossing her legs, she caught Marcus's eye and smirked. She mouthed the words, "You lose." Marcus didn't react. He simply looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It unsettled her, but only for a moment. Judge Patricia Moreno entered the courtroom, her black robes flowing behind her. The bailiff called everyone to order. Judge Moreno was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had seen every kind of divorce drama Los Angeles had to offer, another rich wife dumping her starter husband. It was a Wednesday ritual. "We are here for the matter of Ashford versus Ashford," Judge Moreno said, adjusting her reading glasses. "Ms. Blackwell, you may begin your opening statement." Catherine Blackwell stood, smoothing down her Chanel suit. She walked to the center of the room like a conductor. "Preparing to lead an orchestra, Your Honor," Blackwell began, her voice sharp and clear. "We are here today to dissolve a marriage that was, from the beginning, built on imbalance. My client, Mrs. Victoria Ashford, is a titan of the pharmaceutical industry. She is a woman who built an empire, a woman of substance and vision." Blackwell gestured toward Marcus like he was an exhibit in a museum. "And this man, Marcus Ashford, is a community college history teacher from the San Fernando Valley, a man with no family, no wealth, no pedigree. My client, out of the kindness of her heart, perhaps out of a momentary lapse in judgment, married him. She gave him a life he could never have afforded, penthouses, vacations, access to a world he had only read about in textbooks." Blackwell paused, letting her words hang in the air. "And how did he repay her? With complacency, with entitlement. My client worked 16-hour days while Mr. Ashford graded papers. He contributed nothing to the household income. He lived off her wealth like a parasite." A few gasps came from the spectators in the gallery, mostly reporters Victoria had personally invited to witness Marcus's public humiliation. "We have documentation, Your Honor," Blackwell continued, holding up a thick folder. "Bank statements, testimonies from household staff, evidence that Mr. Ashford was unemployed for 6 months during the marriage, contributing absolutely nothing, while my client carried the financial burden alone." Victoria put her hand to her chest, a performance of wounded dignity. She looked down as if the memory pained her. "We are asking for a clean dissolution," Blackwell declared. "We are asking that Mr. Ashford be denied any claim to marital assets, including the homes, the vehicles, and any stake in Ashford Pharmaceuticals. Furthermore, we are requesting he vacate the marital residence within 72 hours. Elena, the young lawyer, stood up, her legs visibly shaking. "Objection, Your Honor. This is absolutely ridiculous. Mr. Ashford has been a dedicated husband for 9 years. He supported Mrs. Ashford emotionally and intellectually through some of her hardest professional battles." "Sit down, Ms. Rodriguez," Judge Moreno said. "Sounding tired. You'll have your turn." Blackwell turned to Elena with a look of pure contempt. "The defense has no case, Your Honor, because the defendant has no standing. He has no family to vouch for him, no assets, no witnesses. He is, quite simply, a man who married above his station and is now trying to profit from his wife's success." Victoria leaned over to Blackwell as she sat down. "Perfect, Catherine. Did you see his face? He's already defeated. He's done," Blackwell whispered back. "We'll have the papers signed by 2, and you can meet Dante at the beach house by sunset." Marcus sat perfectly still. He reached into his worn leather messenger bag and pulled out his phone. It vibrated once, a single, deliberate buzz. He glanced at the screen, then at the clock on the wall. "Exactly on time, Elena," Marcus said quietly, turning to his lawyer. "What's happening?" Elena whispered, panic in her voice. "I told Victoria I came from nothing," Marcus said, his voice steady. "That was true. I grew up in a small apartment in the valley. My mom worked 2 jobs. But I never told her about my father." "Your father?" Elena's eyes widened. "I told her he left when I was young." "That wasn't exactly true." Marcus stood up. He didn't ask permission. The slump in his shoulders disappeared. His posture straightened. He suddenly looked taller, more grounded, more dangerous. "Your Honor," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the murmurs in the courtroom. It wasn't the voice of a timid teacher. It was the voice of someone used to being heard. Judge Moreno looked over her glasses, irritated. My attorney has done a remarkable job given the false narrative she was provided," Marcus interrupted calmly. "But my actual legal team just arrived. I'm requesting a brief recess to allow them to enter. Victoria laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. Legal team? What legal team? The other teachers from your school. What, the janitor? Blackwell rolled her eyes. Your Honor, this is a transparent stalling tactic. He has no resources. Recess denied, Judge Moreno said, banging her gavel. Sit down, Mr. Ashford. Boom! The sound was the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom slamming open. Every head turned in unison. The atmosphere shifted instantly. It felt like the air pressure had dropped before a storm. Standing in the doorway were 8 men and women. They weren't dressed casually. They wore dark, impeccably tailored suits. They moved with military precision, stepping aside in perfect formation. Victoria frowned, her laughter dying in her throat. Who the hell are these people? Through the corridor of attorneys walked 2 people. The first was a man in his late 60s, silver-haired with a face carved from stone. He wore a suit that cost more than Victoria's car, and he carried a leather briefcase embossed with a gold emblem, a phoenix rising from flames. The second was a woman in her 40s, strikingly elegant, wearing a crimson suit that looked like battle armor. She carried a tablet and exuded the confidence of someone who had never lost anything. Behind them came a line of lawyers, not the scrappy, overworked public defenders. These were the apex predators of the legal world. 12 of them, walking in synchronized steps, each carrying files and tablets. What is the meaning of this? Judge Moreno demanded, though her voice had lost some of its authority. You cannot just barge into my courtroom. The silver-haired man stopped in the center of the aisle. He looked at the judge, then at Victoria. He didn't look at her like a person. He looked at her like an insect under a microscope. My apologies, Your Honor, the man said, his voice deep and resonant. Los Angeles traffic is as terrible as I remembered. My name is James Chen. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that occurs when everyone in the room realizes they've miscalculated badly. Victoria's face went pale. She knew that name. Anyone in business knew that name. Chen, the Chen family. They weren't just wealthy, they were foundational. They built half of Los Angeles. They owned shipping ports, real estate empires, tech conglomerates. They had senators on speed dial and foreign dignitaries at their dinner parties. James Chen, Catherine Blackwell stammered, standing up slowly, the industrialist. And I, the woman in the crimson suit said, stepping forward, I'm Linda Chen Martinez, managing partner at Martinez and Hale. We represent international clients in matters of significant complexity. Blackwell's mouth opened and closed. Martinez and Hale was legendary. They handled corporate espionage cases, international treaties, and divorces involving foreign royalty. They didn't come to Los Angeles Superior Court for a community college teacher. We are here representing the defendant, James Chen said, turning his gaze to Marcus, his cold, calculating eyes softened instantly. Hello, son. Marcus stepped out from behind the table. He walked past a stunned Elena Rodriguez and embraced the older man. Hi, Dad. Dad! Victoria shrieked, standing up so fast her chair nearly toppled. That's impossible. You said your father abandoned you. James Chen released his son and turned slowly to face Victoria. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a glacial fury. He said I left when he was young, James corrected, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. He didn't say I abandoned him. I left to rebuild our family's business after my father's death. I worked in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Shanghai, and I sent money home every month. Money his mother used to make sure Marcus never wanted for anything. James took a step toward Victoria. The bodyguards tensed but didn't move. Marcus used his mother's maiden name, Ashford, because he wanted a simple life. He wanted to be a teacher. He wanted to find someone who loved him for who he was, not for what his family owned. James's voice was ice. We gave him 9 years. 9 years to see if you were worthy. We stayed away as he asked. And then you decided to humiliate him. Linda, Marcus's sister, slammed her briefcase onto the defense table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. You didn't just file for divorce. Victoria, Linda said, opening the case. You tried to destroy him. You fabricated a narrative that he was a gold digger. You tried to take everything while painting him as worthless. She pulled out a document. This is a motion to dismiss your fraudulent claims. She pulled out another, thicker document, and this is a counterclaim. Counterclaim. Blackwell managed to squeak. On what grounds? Fraud, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Linda listed, her voice razor sharp. And, oh yes, corporate embezzlement. Victoria felt the room tilt. You're insane. I'm the CEO. I built that company. You inherited that company, James said, his voice dripping with contempt. And you nearly ran it into the ground twice. Who do you think bailed you out? Who do you think provided the capital injections when your drug trials failed? Judge Moreno, sensing the tectonic shift happening in her courtroom, cleared her throat. Mr. Chen, while I respect your entrance, you cannot simply take over. Miss Chen Martinez, you must file an appearance. Already filed electronically, Your Honor, Linda said smoothly. 14 minutes ago, along with a motion to transfer this case to a higher court, given the complex financial instruments involved. Financial instruments? Victoria scoffed, trying to regain control. I'm the one with the assets. He has nothing, Marcus spoke then. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. Victoria, he said, who do you think funded your Series B round 6 years ago? When you were about to lose the company? Victoria blinked. An investment group. Pacific Horizon Capital. Pacific Horizon, Marcus repeated, which is a subsidiary of Chen Global Holdings. My family's trust. I authorized the investment myself. We own 48% of Ashford Pharmaceuticals through Shell Companies. My father owns another 4%. He smiled, a sad, knowing smile. That's 52%, Victoria. I'm not your broke husband. I'm your largest shareholder. The color drained from Victoria's face so completely, she looked like a marble statue. Blackwell looked like she might faint. We are freezing all corporate accounts effective. Immediately, Linda announced, handing papers to the bailiff. We are also serving you with an eviction notice for the Malibu property. The deed is held in a Chen family trust. You have 72 hours. You can't do this. Victoria screamed, her polished facade cracking. I'm the CEO. I built that company. With my family's money, Marcus said quietly, and my research. Do you think those patent applications wrote themselves, Victoria? I spent 3 years helping you develop those drug formulas. I have the lab notes, I have the emails. James Chen tapped his briefcase. Your Honor, I suggest a recess. My daughter-in-law looks like she needs to call her boyfriend and tell him the villa's no longer available. The courtroom erupted. Reporters typed frantically. Elena Rodriguez stared at Marcus like he'd grown a second. Head Judge Moreno banged her gavel. Order! We'll take a 1-hour recess. As the judge exited, Victoria collapsed into her chair. She looked up at Marcus, searching for the man who used to make her coffee and listen to her complain about board meetings. He was gone. In his place was a stranger, backed by an empire. Marcus leaned across the aisle. You wanted to erase me, Victoria, he said softly. But you can't erase the Chens. We don't just survive. We rebuild. He turned and walked out, flanked by his father, his sister, and the wall of attorneys. Victoria sat alone in the chaos, the scent of her expensive perfume now sour with the stench of fear. The 1-hour recess lasted exactly 11 minutes before. Victoria Ashford was in her Bentley, speeding down Wilshire Boulevard like the hounds of hell were chasing her. Her hands shook on the leather steering wheel. It's a bluff, she muttered to herself. Nobody hides being a billionaire heir. Nobody? She grabbed her phone. Dialing Richard Park, her CFO, the man who knew where every dollar was hidden. Richard! Ooh, Victoria screamed the second he picked up. Where are you? I'm at headquarters, Victoria. Richard's voice sounded strange, thin, scared. Listen, you shouldn't come here right now. I'm the goddamn CEO. I go where I please. I need you to move the offshore accounts, the Singapore holdings, the Swiss reserves, transfer everything to the crypto wallets. We set up. Do it now. There was a long, terrible silence. Richard, did you hear me? I can't do that, Victoria. Why the hell not? Because, Richard whispered, they're already here. The Chen auditors, they have federal authorization. Victoria, they have everything. They found the line went dead. Victoria slammed the phone onto the passenger seat. She hit the accelerator, running a yellow light that turned red. She needed to get to the server room. If she could delete the files, the evidence of the embezzlement she'd been committing for 2 years to fund her lifestyle and Dante's expensive tastes, she might survive. This, she screeched into the underground parking garage of Ashford. Pharmaceuticals. She jumped out of the car, sprinting toward her private elevator. She pressed her thumb to the biometric scanner. Beep, 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 access denied. Victoria stared at the red light. She wiped her thumb and tried again. Access denied. User ID invalid. No, 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 she whispered. Mrs. Ashford. Victoria spun around. 2 security guards, men she'd hired, men whose loyalty she'd bought, stood there with crossed arms and impassive faces. Open this elevator, Victoria commanded. The system's malfunctioning. It's not a malfunction, ma'am. And the taller guard said, we've been instructed to escort you to the boardroom. Visitor access only. Visitor! Victoria's voice echoed in the concrete garage. I own this building. This way, ma'am. They flanked her, professionally ushering her to the service elevator. The humiliation burned hotter than acid. Victoria Ashford, dragged through the back entrance of her own empire. When the elevator opened on the executive floor, the office was silent. Usually, it buzzed with energy, analysts shouting, assistants rushing. Now everyone sat at their desks, heads down, pretending to work. But Victoria could feel their eyes on her. They knew. The glass doors of the boardroom were frosted, but she could see shadows inside. She pushed past the guards and threw the doors open. The scene stopped her cold. The long table was full. The entire board of directors sat there, people Victoria had, manipulated and controlled for years. They wouldn't look at her. At the head of the table, in her seat, sat Marcus. He'd changed. He wore a charcoal suit now, perfectly tailored. His hair was combed back. He looked comfortable in that leather chair. He looked like he belonged there. To his right sat James Chen, reviewing spreadsheets with reading glasses. To his left was Linda, typing on a tablet. Standing in the corner, pale and sweating, was Richard Park. You're in my chair, Victoria snarled. I'm in the chairman's seat, Marcus corrected. And since my family represents the majority shareholders, as of 40 minutes ago, this is my seat. You can't do this. Victoria slammed her hands on the table. I have a contract. I have protections. Article 12. Section D of your employment agreement, Linda said without looking up. The CEO can be removed immediately without severance in cases of gross misconduct or fiduciary malfeasance. I haven't done anything wrong, Victoria lied, her eyes darting to Richard. Marcus picked up a folder and slid it across the table. It stopped perfectly in front of Victoria. Richard told us everything, Marcus said softly. The company credit card charges for Dante's apartment. The business trips to Bali that were personal vacations. The equipment purchases that were actually jewelry. Victoria looked at Richard. You traitor! You coward! I have kids, Victoria. Richard stammered. Mr. Chen's forensic team found the discrepancies in 20 minutes. They offered me immunity. I'm sorry. Victoria's world spun. Fine. Fire me. I still own 30% of this company. I'll take my shares and start over. James Chen finally looked up, removing his reading glasses with deliberate slowness. Actually, you don't own anything, James said, his voice like gravel. 3 years ago, you took a loan against your equity to cover gambling debts in Monte Carlo. You used your shares as collateral. Victoria froze. She'd buried that. The loan was held by a firm called Apex Lending Solutions. James continued, care to guess who owns Apex? Victoria couldn't breathe. I do, James said. And since you defaulted on the last 3 margin calls, I foreclosed this morning. Your shares are now mine. Victoria stumbled backward. This is entrapment. You planned this. You set me up. I gave you 9 years. Victoria, Marcus said, standing. He walked around the table until he stood inches from her. I covered for you. I helped you. I used my trust fund dividends to plug the holes you dug, because I thought you were stressed. Not corrupt. His voice was steady, but there was pain beneath it. But then you told me I was worthless. You told me I was embarrassing you at company events. You told me to stay home because I didn't fit your image. So I'm taking back what's mine. Victoria, the support, the money, the research, all of it. Marcus turned to the board. I call for a vote to remove Victoria Ashford as CEO, effective immediately pending criminal investigation. Seconded. May said a board member Victoria had considered a friend, all in favor. Every hand went up. Even Richard's. Motion carried, Marcus said. He looked at the guards. Please escort Mrs. Ashford from the premises. Her belongings will be shipped. Marcus, wait, Victoria pleaded, her arrogance finally shattering. She reached for his arm. The guard intercepted, gripping her wrist firmly. Don't touch him, Mum. Marcus. Please, I made mistakes. I was under pressure. I love you. Marcus looked at her for a moment. Victoria saw a flicker of the man she'd married, but then his expression hardened. You don't love me, Victoria. You loved that I made you feel superior. Goodbye. He turned his back. Get her out of here, James ordered. As Victoria was escorted out, screaming, Marcus didn't look back. He sat in the CEO's chair and took a deep breath. Now, he said to the board, let's fix what she broke. The sidewalk outside Ashford Pharmaceuticals was cold. Victoria stood there without her coat, without her dignity, without her empire. Security had literally escorted her through the lobby as employees watched. Someone was filming with a phone. She needed to leave. She needed Dante. She pulled out her phone and called him. Vic. Dante answered casually. Where are you? The caterers are here for the party tonight. Forget the party, Victoria snapped, her voice shaking. Pack a bag. We need to leave the country. Leave. What are you talking about? Did you win the divorce? It's complicated. Just pack. I'm 10 minutes away. She hung up and checked her banking app. She needed to move cash before the freeze expanded. She logged in. Balance. 0. She refreshed. Balance. 1847. 32 overdraft. What? She whispered. She checked the transaction history. One massive transfer. Court-ordered asset freeze. Her Bentley was towed while she stood there. A city tow truck, hoisting her $300,000 car onto a flatbed. Wait. That's mine. Registered to Ashford Farmer. Ma'am, the driver said. Repossessed by Chen Global Holdings. He drove away. Victoria stood on the curb and hailed a cab. A yellow taxi. She, Victoria Ashford, in a cab. Malibu, she told the driver. The Colony. That's $85, the driver said. Victoria handed him her Amex. Declined. Her Visa. Declined. You got cash. Victoria checked her wallet. A single $50 bill. I need change. Not a bank lady. She threw the $50 at him and got out halfway there. She walked the rest, 2 miles in Louboutin heels. When she finally reached the villa, Dante was on the deck sipping a cocktail, watching the sunset. My God, Vic, he said. Standing. You look terrible. What happened? They froze everything, Victoria gasped. Marcus, he's not who I thought. He's a Chen. His family owns half of Los Angeles. Dante's expression changed. Slowly, carefully, a Chen. Like the Chens? Yes, they took the company. They took the house, they took everything. But we can rebuild. You have savings, right? We can go to Europe. I have contacts. Dante stared at her. Then he started laughing. Rebuild, he repeated. Vic, do you know why I'm with you? Because we're partners, Victoria said desperately. Because we're building something. I'm with you because you paid for this villa, Dante said. Flatly. I'm with you because you gave me a Range Rover. I'm with you because you're powerful. He looked her up and down with disgust. But right now, you look like a loser, a broke loser. Dante, you're up against the Chens. Namel, he laughed. You're finished, Victoria. And I'm not going down with you. He grabbed his keys. Where are you going? I have a meeting with that venture capitalist in Santa Monica. The one who's been asking me out for months. You can't leave me. Watch me. He walked to his car, the Range Rover she'd bought him. Don't call me. Victoria, you're bad for my brand. He drove away. Victoria stood in the empty villa, the sound of waves mocking her. A knock on the door. She opened it. Linda Chen Martinez stood there, flanked by 2 police officers. "Mrs. Ashford," Linda said, holding out an envelope. "What is this?" "A subpoena and an arrest warrant." "Arrest warrant?" Victoria's voice cracked. "Embezzlement, wire fraud, securities fraud." Linda listed. "My brother doesn't like it when people steal from his family's investments. We did a complete forensic audit. You embezzled $4, $2 million over 18 months. The officer stepped forward. "Victoria Ashford, you're under arrest." "No." Victoria whimpered as the cuffs clicked. "This isn't real." "Oh, it's very real," Linda said. "And Victoria, the villa's owner, that's my father, is evicting you. You have 24 hours to remove your belongings." "I have nothing," Victoria whispered as she was led away. "I have nothing." Linda watched her go, then called her brother. "It's done. She's in custody." 6 months later, the sentencing hearing was in the same courthouse where Victoria had once sat smugly, expecting to destroy Marcus. But this time, she wore an orange jumpsuit. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She'd lost weight, her skin was sallow. Her eyes were empty. Marcus sat in the gallery with his father and sister. He wore a simple suit. He didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. Judge Moreno entered. "Victoria Ashford," the judge said, reading from the file. "You have pleaded guilty to wire fraud, embezzlement and perjury. You betrayed your investors, your employees and your husband." The judge's voice was cold. "The prosecution recommends 12 years. I see no reason to deviate. You are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Furthermore, restitution is set at $38 million, payable to Chen Global Holdings and Ashford Pharmaceuticals." Bam! The gavel fell. As the bailiff moved to take her, Victoria turned. She looked at Marcus for the first time in months. "Marcus!" she rasped. "I'm sorry." Marcus stood. He walked to the railing. "I know you are, Victoria." "You're sorry you got caught?" "No." She choked. "I had everything. Why was I so stupid?" "Because you thought power was something you took," Marcus said quietly. "You didn't realize that real power is what you give. I gave you everything, my trust, my work, my family's resources, and you threw it away for an illusion. Will you visit me?" Victoria asked, desperation in her voice. Marcus looked at his father, who nodded, then at his sister, then back at Victoria. "No," he said. "I have a company to rebuild and a life to live. Goodbye, Victoria." He walked out. The doors closed with finality. Outside, the air was fresh. It was spring in Los Angeles. Jacaranda trees were blooming purple. The city felt alive. Reporters swarmed at the courthouse steps. "Mr. Ashford! Mr. Ashford! How do you feel? What's next for Ashford Pharma under Chen ownership? Is it true you're renaming the company?" Marcus stopped at the bottom of the steps. He looked at the sea of cameras. "My name," he said calmly, "is Marcus Chen. And what's next? We're going to build something real, something that helps people." He got into the waiting car, where his father poured 2 glasses of water. "You handled that with grace." "Son," James said, "better than I would have." "She has to live with herself," Marcus replied. "That's punishment enough." Linda opened her laptop. "We have a board meeting at 4. Tokyo office wants to discuss the merger." The projections looked promising. Marcus leaned back, closing his eyes. He thought about the small apartment in the valley where he grew up. He thought about the nights in the penthouse, waiting for a wife who didn't care. He thought about the fear he used to live with. Then he let it go. "Let's do it," Marcus said. Opening his eyes, "I have some ideas about the Tokyo expansion." And that's how Victoria Ashford learned the hardest lesson of her life. Never underestimate the quiet ones. She thought she was crushing a powerless husband, but she was actually waking a sleeping dragon. Marcus didn't just win his freedom. He reclaimed his name, his legacy, and proved that dignity, patience, and truth are the most powerful weapons of all. Victoria's empire was built on arrogance. Marcus's would be built on something stronger, integrity. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What did you think of Marcus's revenge? Was it justified? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.